record will reflect the presence of counsel, the defendant, and the jury. And folks, just remember to allow yourself enough time to get back from breaks, use the restroom, just so we can get you all in here as close to 1:30 and after our breaks. And we can't bring you all in unless we have everyone here. So I sure appreciate it. All right, Mr. Barker, you may proceed.
Thank you. All right, Lily, thank you for being back here. We left off, I think, talking about your walk down to the church and looking through the church. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, let's back up a little bit just so we're clear. So you went down to the church with Lucinda.
That's right.
And went through the top floor and the basement of the church.
That's right.
And were there any signs of disturbance or anything that led you to believe something happened to Sasha at that point?
Not that I recall.
All right. And as far as Sasha's car in the parking lot, was there anything in the car or around the car that suggested anything happened?
I don't think so.
All right. Let me back up a little bit and talk about Sasha again. I forgot to ask a couple of questions related to her. Would you characterize her as being a strict observer of the Mennonite religion?
Yes.
Okay. Would it be unusual for her to leave the house without a head covering, for instance?
That's right.
All right. So that would be something you would expect her to have done that night as well?
That's right.
All right. After you looked through the church with Lucinda and checked out the car, what did you do next?
We called Kurt's wife, Naomi, because we didn't have his number and told him.
All right. So let's talk about who's Kurt.
Kurt Morris is the administrator at the assisted living.
All right. Is he one of the church leaders as well, or
No, he's not.
he doesn't have a role in that regard?
No, he does not.
Okay. Why did you think to call Kurt?
Because the house parents weren't at home and they were the next people to call.
All right. You didn't have Kurt's number, so you said you called his wife. Is that right?
That's right.
And who made the phone call?
Lucinda.
And then what happened after that?
Kurt met us at the church house.
Okay. Did the police arrive sometime after that?
Yes.
Do you recall how long it took for the police to get there?
I do not recall.
All right. Sometime still in that dark, early morning hours?
That's right.
Did you speak to the police that morning, that day?
I did.
All right. Lily, I'm going to show you some exhibits. I want you to tell me if you can identify these, okay? And I've shown these to counsel already. All right, I'm handing you what's been marked as Exhibit 83. I'll just give them all to you, and I'll ask you at the very end if you can identify them. Exhibit 123 and Exhibits 130 through 140. And I'm sorry, Judge, I forgot to ask if I could approach.
I noticed that, but permission granted.
May I approach?
You may.
Thank you. So Lily, can you just look at those? Tell me if you can recognize what's depicted in those photos, please.
Which one am I supposed to start with?
Go through all of them and
Okay.
just, if one of them you don't recognize, let me know which one, but if you recognize all of them, we'll go from there.
Okay.
You finished?
Yes,
Do you recognize what's depicted in each one of those photos?
I do.
All right. And are those photos of the Lamp and Light publishing and the area surrounding that where you lived?
That's right.
And as well as the church building, is that right?
That's right.
Your Honor, I move to admit at this time Exhibit 83, 123, and then 130 through 140.
Any objection?
Objection.
All right, Exhibits 183, 123, and 130 through 140 are admitted.
Thank you. May I publish?
Permission granted.
All right. Well, let's go to 83. And Judge, maybe I can ask the jury if anyone has a hard time seeing, I can move that podium, but let's try it without moving anything for now. Can I ask the jury, Judge, if anyone can't see, raise your hand.
So is there anyone, I know that with those of you that are especially in our front row in front of the jury box right now, I want to make sure, because you're a little bit lower than the other folks, nod your heads if you can see the screen completely. Okay, great. Looks like everyone can see it. Go ahead, Mr. Barker.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, so Lily, we're showing Exhibit 83. Can you describe what we're looking at here?
That would be the Farmington Mennonite community.
All right. And there will be a laser pointer up there just in front of you. It looks like a pen.
Okay.
Has a red button on it. You can push that. And let me just ask you to orient us a little bit. Can you point out where the church is in this photo, 83?
Right there.
Okay, I need you to pull, so you have to also speak into the microphone, right, as loudly as you can.
Right there.
All right. And you can even see, and I got a laser pointer too, you can even see it says Farmington Mennonite Church, right?
That's right.
Okay. And then where did you live with Sasha, Ruby, and Lucinda? Can you point that out?
Right there.
All right. So there's a gray roof just above that photo, or excuse me, just above the church. Is that right?
That's right.
All right. And then the publishing house, where would that be located?
Right there.
All right. And then you mentioned a Gingrich home. That's the assisted living. Is that depicted here as well?
It's right there.
All right. So that darker area toward the bottom of the photo. Now, we talked about a highway that kind of runs adjacent to the community. Where would that be in relation to this exhibit?
Okay, so it's to the bottom of the picture.
All right, so just outside the frame on the bottom here.
That's right.
Okay. Now, it's hard to see, Lily, but there are some words on this hillside, right?
That's right.
And what does it say?
Lamp and light.
Lamp and light, okay. So this kind of shows you the community where you lived, is that fair?
That's right.
Let's go to 123 now. What are we looking at here?
Sasha's car in the middle.
All right, you said you mentioned it was a Ford Focus. That's in the middle there.
That's right.
And is this at the church?
That's right.
Now, when you went down there and checked out, or were looking for Sasha, were these other two cars there?
No, they were not.
Do you know who owns those two cars?
I do not.
All right. Let's go to 130. Tell us about 130.
That's the church house.
All right. Would that be the front entrance then?
That's right.
Now, is there a sign or something outside the church that says when church services are?
Not, I don't think in front of the church house.
Was there ever?
There's one along the main road.
Along the main road?
Yeah.
What would it say?
Farmington Mennonite Church.
Did it say anything about when church services were held?
It does.
What does it say?
Sunday services start at 10.
All right. Let's go to 131. Tell us about 131.
That's the front of the entrance there at the church house.
All right. And 132, what are we looking at here?
The entry into the church house.
So if going back to 131, that's the front door. 132 is just right inside the door. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And this is where it looks like you met as a congregation for church services, right?
That's right.
Okay. Let's go to 133. What can you tell us about this?
That's the lower entrance into the basement.
All right. So just to orient us a little bit, the front door, is it over here?
That's right.
On the left side? Okay. And this, you could enter into this door, is that correct?
That's right.
And this would have been kind of the basement area of the church?
That's right.
All right. So when we saw that photo of Sasha's car, where was her car in relation to this photo here?
It was by the upper entrance.
All right, so on the other side of this, I guess, what we could point to kind of this side of the church, is that right?
That's right.
On the upper level.
That's right.
All right. Let's go to 134. What are we looking at here?
The basement.
Is this a photo right inside that doorway then?
That's right.
Okay. What is the purpose of the basement area?
They have the classrooms down there, like the school classrooms down there.
So is that a school and a Sunday school, or is there a difference?
No, there's not. Well, okay, school is as in classes, and Sunday school has to do with Sunday morning services.
Okay. Tell the jury a little bit about the education process in Mennonite church.
As far as school,
Yes.
okay, so we are required to go from 1st to 8th. And I know that some churches go to 10th.
Okay. And what happens after 8th grade?
Or we are at home, or we are allowed to help out in homes.
Help out in homes?
That's right.
Okay. And so going through the 8th grade, is this what's happening in this basement of the church?
That's right.
All right. And then are you also having Sunday school lessons in this area as well?
That's right.
Okay. If Sasha, as you mentioned, was trying to find some books, where would she have found those books?
In the basement.
In this area here?
That's right.
Okay. Let's go to 135. Just describe what we're seeing here.
All right, so the brown building right here is the Gingrich home, then it's the church house, and the rest of the houses where different ones lived.
Okay. Let's go to 136. What can you tell us about this photo?
This right here would be the pathway up to where we lived.
Okay. So this blue house here in the corner, that's where you live?
That's right.
And so this would have been kind of the road to the church, between the church and your house. Is that right?
That's right.
Let's go to 137. Describe this for us.
That would be the basement where we would go in. You can't quite see the door.
Point to, with that laser pointer, where the doorway would be.
About right here, right close to the window.
Just to the right there of the photo.
That's right.
And can you point out where the church is in this photo?
Right there.
All right, so you can see the church again, like you described, not a far walk, is that right?
That's right.
And then 138. Tell us about this one.
All right, this is the side view, and this would be like to go to the upstairs, and then this right here is the doorway where we would go in.
All right, and you mentioned before that you, Lucinda, Ruby, and Sasha lived in the basement, and so this is the doorway you would enter?
That's right.
All right, let's go to 139. What are we looking at here?
That was the trailer where Sasha was planning to move into.
All right, so this is, when you were preparing that bed, putting that together, this is the place you were doing it?
That's right.
Okay. Had she yet moved into that building then?
No, she had not.
All right. Just preparing to move in.
That's right.
Let's go to 140 now. What are we looking at here?
The Lamp and Light Building Publishing House.
All right, thank you. You have a moment, Judge?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Lily. That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes. Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Bruce Griffin. I'm counsel for Mr. Gooch. I'll have some questions for you as well, all right?
Okay.
Is it possible, counsel, we could go back to the overhead exhibit? Just put that back up for a moment.
Exhibit 20.
Yeah. 83. I'm directing you back to Exhibit 83. That's the overhead of the community area, correct?
That's right.
Right. And could you, with your laser pointer one more time, show us where the basement to your house and the house that you were in, and just line that over to the church, to the entryway to the church that we've seen?
From there to there.
Right. So you've marked from the residence that you lived in with the basement over to the front of, which would be to the left-hand side of this photo of the church building. Is that right?
That's right.
Thank you. And again, just to approximate, we saw it, but would you say it's more than a football field, approximately a football field? Can you give us some scale?
I cannot tell you that for sure.
Right. Walking time would take you?
2 minutes at the least.
Okay, thank you. Go back up. Thank you. A couple of things that I wanted to review. Just to make sure I'm clear, you described to council that you had a friendship relationship with Miss Sasha Krause, correct?
That's right.
And did she ever share with you that she was distressed or disturbed with any of your roommates or members of the church?
Objection, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you know that Sasha was going to relocate over to the trailer?
That's right.
Okay, and how early on did you know that?
As soon as I moved there.
Did you know what the relocation was for or why it was occurring?
To create more space.
Meaning somebody would move into your space and somebody had left the trailer?
That's right.
Did you ever see any indication of stress or emotion in the body language of Sasha Krause before January 18?
I did not.
Did you ever see any suggestion that she was unhappy?
I did not.
You mentioned to us when you testified earlier that you went to bed around what time?
7:30-ish.
When you talk, do you remember your interview with law enforcement?
I do.
Did you tell them a different time that you might have gone to bed?
Not that I recall.
Did you mention 7:45?
Not that I recall.
Are you sure that it was 7:30 and not 7:45?
I am not sure.
Okay, thank you. Could have been 7:45?
Possibly.
All right, thank you. Is there a curfew that's required for any of the members of the community?
There is.
Could you tell us about that?
10 o'clock.
And just to be clear, you told us that you didn't see Sasha leave to go over to the church. Is that right?
That's right.
You didn't hear that either.
I did not.
Right. And when you were asked, if you recall what she was wearing, can you specifically say, without speculating, that she was wearing her head covering?
I believe she was.
Well, can you tell me that she was wearing it earlier?
She was.
Can you tell me that she wore it when you guys went to the store to get the bed?
She was.
Can you tell us that she was wearing it when you assembled the bed?
She was.
When after dinner, when you no longer saw her, do you know whether she engaged in any change of her clothing?
She did not.
How do you know?
Because of pictures
Pictures of?
afterwards.
Pictures after her body was recovered.
That's right.
All right. And not to be too challenging about it, but her pictures show that she did not have her head covering at the time when her body was found, correct?
That's right.
So my question to you is, are you the right person to clarify whether she was wearing it when she left the house?
I cannot tell you that.
All right, thank you for that. I'm not familiar with the particulars of your religion when it comes to the clothing, but do you have more than one head covering, you yourself?
I do not.
Do you know whether most members have one or more head coverings?
We have several to wear, but they're all the same pattern.
Okay. Do you know whether or not Sasha had more than one head covering?
She did.
When her room was searched, do you know whether a head covering was located?
I do not recall.
Were you ever witness to any difficulty between Lucinda and Sasha?
I was.
All right. How much earlier than the time that Sasha disappeared did that difficulty arise?
Not more than 2 months.
To your knowledge, was it known within the Mennonite community there in Farmington that Lucinda and Sasha might not have been getting along well?
I do.
Okay. When you went over to inspect the church after Sasha was not located at the house, and let me just go back. That was unusual, yes?
That's right.
In fact, do you recall a time where she ever missed curfew before?
No, she did not.
And it would be uncommon for most people to miss a curfew. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Now, when you learned that and you went over to the church, did you see anything? You were asked, was there anything suspicious? Did you see anything that was disturbed, out of place, broken, damaged?
I did not.
Did you see any people or individuals around or near the church when you went over there?
I did not.
Earlier in the evening, while you were having dinner, before you had dinner, while you were out and about and coming in and out of your residence, did you ever see any suspicious cars?
I did not.
Did you ever see any individuals that stood out as not a part of the community?
I did not.
Is it fair to say that you're generally familiar with people who would be at the community?
That's right.
You're familiar generally with the cars they would drive?
That's right.
A car that does not belong and an individual that doesn't belong would be noteworthy. Is that
That's
fair?
right.
And it would be of some, at least concern, or at least it would raise at least some suspicion. Is that fair?
That's fair.
That day, you saw none of those things.
I did not.
We've shown pictures of both what would be called the basement area as well as the upper level of the church, right?
That's right.
In order to access the church in the evening, do you have to have a key?
Not at that time.
Meaning policy has changed since.
That's right.
At that time, thanks for the clarification, back on the 18th of January, would generally one door be left open?
You could have gone in any of the doors.
So all of them would have been open.
That's right.
That was well known to all of the members.
That's right.
To get to the basement area, if you were going to drive to get to the basement area of the church from your residence, what would be the easiest means of access, the basement or through the upper part of the church?
The upper part.
Tell us why.
Because that's the upper part was where we could easier go in than the lower part because of where we were coming from.
Do you have to go kind of around to get down to the basement?
There's stairs in the church house.
Okay. So, in other words, it would not have been, if Sasha was going to the church, even if she might have had the destination of the basement part of the facility, she might have parked upstairs just because it would be the easiest means?
That's right.
We've heard, let me ask you, were you familiar with a donation box that was available in the church facility for buying calendars for the year?
That's right.
Is that donation box upstairs or downstairs?
Upstairs.
Right. And was it right on the way in?
That's right.
When you went to the church, did you first look inside the church to look for Sasha, or did you first look in her car?
We went into the church house.
Did you then go with Lucinda to the vehicle?
That's right.
Was there anything about the vehicle that suggested that there was any concern or problem?
There was not.
Tell me a little bit about, to the extent that you have familiarity with Sasha's habits, did she have a habit of always locking her car at the facility?
She did not.
Did she have a habit of always carrying her phone with her?
She did.
She did. Okay. Did she have a habit of always taking her purse or personal identification with her?
She did.
When you determined that she was missing, was her phone missing?
It was.
When you determined that she was missing, was her wallet and ID missing?
Her wallet was in her bedroom because she was only going to church.
All right. So she might not have taken everything that she might otherwise have.
That's right.
But at least we know that when the search was done, her personal ID and wallet were still in her room.
That's right.
The books that Sasha was going to the facility to get, were they there or not there when you looked?
They were there.
The gentleman seated next to me is Mr. Gooch. You understand that?
That's right.
Have you ever met Mr. Gooch before January 18 of 2020?
I have never met him.
Ever saw him?
Never saw him.
Didn't see him that day?
I did not.
Did you see a vehicle described as a dark-colored, maybe blue Jetta vehicle at the church that day?
I did not.
At the time period that you've identified, late in the evening, around 1 o'clock, after 1 o'clock when you went to the church?
That's right.
Still no sight of any vehicle like that?
Not at all.
And you'd never seen any vehicle like that earlier in the day?
I did not.
To your knowledge, had Sasha ever mentioned the name Mark Gooch before?
She had not.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Redirect.
Thank you. In fact, Lily, Sasha never mentioned anybody that would have seemed a threat to her. Is that right?
I didn't understand the question.
I mean, did she ever mention to you that there was someone on her mind that would have been a threat to her?
She did not.
She didn't ever appear that she was not safe to you. Is that right?
That's right.
You were asked some questions about some difficulty with Lucinda. Is that how you would characterize it, difficulty?
It would have been more work stress.
So work stress. It wasn't anything violent in nature, is that right?
Not at all.
How would you characterize Lucinda's manner? Is she, or character? Is she a peaceful person?
She is.
In fact, in Mennonite religion, isn't that part of your tenets or beliefs?
That's right.
You will not resist violence with violence. Is that fair?
The scope of redirect.
Sustained.
Let me ask you about some questions counsel was asking you regarding what you saw or didn't see on that day. Were you in a position to sit and watch the church that entire day?
No, I was not.
What were you doing that day?
I was at the house doing laundry, and then I went with Sasha, and we were up in her trailer.
All right. And as we saw in the photos, that trailer was even further up the hill than the house you were living in. Is that right?
That's right.
But you weren't sitting out on the porch looking at the church, looking around the community for suspicious cars, were you?
I was not.
Regarding the kind of the landscape of that place, would you agree that it's kind of a bowl-shaped? In other words, there's hills, I guess it would be to the west, and there's also hills on the other side of the highway?
That's right.
Okay. And so you could kind of look down onto the Mennonite community from various higher points around that.
That's right.
You were asked questions about Sasha's head covering. When would you not wear a head covering? Is there ever a point you wouldn't?
Basically, only when we shower.
All right. Even in the house, you're wearing it?
That's right.
You recall what Sasha was wearing that day, aside from the head covering?
That's right.
I'm sorry. Do you recall what she was wearing aside from the head covering?
She had a dress on.
Do you recall what color?
A gray.
A gray dress?
That's right.
Do you recall what kind of jackets she would have had at the time?
I do not know what jacket she wore when she left.
All right. You asked a question about the timing that you took your shower. I'm sorry, that you went to bed. And I think you said 7:30, but possibly 7:45, not
That's
sure.
possibly.
Okay. And that would have been after your shower then?
That's right.
So there was a period where you're in the shower after dinner when you talked to Sasha, and then you went to bed. During that time period, were you aware of where Sasha was?
I was not.
Did Sasha ever appear to you to be unhappy on January 18th, 2020?
She did not.
Let me show you a couple more photos and then I'll be finished. Let's go to exhibit 132 that's been admitted. So Lily, you talked about this already. This is the photo just inside the church entrance, correct? On the top floor?
That's right.
And then, I didn't ask you, but what are these areas right here? There's some hallways to the right and left here.
That's the stairways to the basement.
All right, so you could enter the basement, walking in the front door and just turn to the right, for instance.
That's right.
All right. You asked questions from council about a box with calendars, perhaps some money. Where would that be located?
It would have been the door right here. Before that.
All right, so just as you walk into the church, it would be to your right?
That's right.
Okay. Let me just show you one more photo. This is exhibit 136. Again, this is showing the road kind of from the church leading to your house. Is that right?
That's right.
And if you kept walking up this road, you'd eventually hit that trailer that Sasha was to move into.
That's right.
And we were talking just about the landscape. It looks like we're walking up a hill here slightly. Is that right?
That's right.
So you'd be walking downhill to the church. Is that fair?
That's fair.
From the house, I should say. And then if you kept walking, eventually you hit the highway. Is that right?
That's right.
And if you kept walking past the highway, you'd hit some other hills and go up.
That's right.
All right, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Could I have one moment with council?
Yes.
I can ask him.
Judge, with permission, I'd ask council if he could pursue one additional question.
Sure.
That's fine, Judge. Thank you. Lily, would you be wearing your head covering while you're sleeping?
We have a veil style we would wear when we were sleeping.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. Anything else? Judge, I have no objection if council wants to pursue that further. Thank you.
No, I just wanted to clarify for the jury. Thank you.
Okay. All right, do any of the jurors have a question for this witness before the witness is excused? All right, apparently we might have a question. So remember, just write your question out. Do not sign your name to the form, please. Counsel, will you approach, please? I'm sorry, let's go sidebar. What is the main road or highway that was alluded to earlier? And I'm just going to continue to read. Near the community, outside frame of the picture. That's the question, if you understand it.
I cannot recall the number of it.
Okay. Is this a busy highway or just a sparsely traveled country road?
The highway that is the furthest out is a busy one. The one right by the building is not as busy.
How many roads into the community are there from the main road?
As in which main road?
This is the juror's question, so
Okay, so the main road would be, you would make a left into the community.
how spread out is the community?
As in the area there?
Well, these are jurors' questions and not mine, so I just have to read them the way they're written. Understand the attorneys will be able to do follow-up, and I'll give the jurors one last opportunity to ask questions before I turn it over to the attorneys. So if you're able to answer it, then please answer it. If you're not able to answer it or you don't understand the question, you can tell us.
Okay, so the community, the Lamp and Light community is generally for workers. There are other members that are spread out further, and I do not know how far and wide that is.
How many structures are not present in the pictures we have seen so far?
I think they're all covered.
On overhead map, where was Sasha's new trailer located? Mr. Barker, could you put that photograph up, please, and identify for the record which exhibit that is?
Exhibit 83, Judge.
Thank you. So Exhibit 83, and we'll get it up on the screen.
Right there.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, any other questions from jurors before I turn it over to the attorneys? If you have a question, just please write it out and hand it down all the way down the row to the bailiff. Please, thank you, folks. Counsel, you approach. Sidebar. Any other questions from the jury for this witness before I turn until I ask counsel if they have follow-up? Any other questions for this witness? Okay, apparently not. Counsel, Mr. Barker, any follow-up?
Thank you. Stand back here again. Let me bring up 83 one more time here, Willie. You were asked a question about if this contains the entire community. I think you said yes, as far as the people working in the Lamp and Light. Is that right?
That's right.
But if we were to expand this out, go a little higher, you can see houses and buildings everywhere. I mean, this is part of Farmington, is that
That's right.
Okay. And just so we're clear, this road here, this kind of dirt road, this will go past the church, right?
That's right.
But if you take it down here, down to the bottom of the photo, and you keep going, you're going to hit the highway.
That's right.
Okay. Would this be kind of the main road from the highway?
That's right.
And it would run perpendicular to the highway.
That's right.
Okay. I think you mentioned the highway. It's a busy one, right? It's part of the main system for Farmington, right?
That's right.
This right here, do you know what this is, this structure down here?
That's the mini storage.
Okay, it's a storage unit area. All right. All right, I think that's all I have. Thank you, Lily.
Mr. Griffin?
No follow-up on this topic. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Barker, may this witness be excused?
Yes, thank you.
You are excused. You may step down. Thank you. Mr. Barker, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. The state calls Lucinda Hurst.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? This you do under the penalty of perjury.
Make sure the microphone's close to you. If you need some more, it's right here.
Thank you.
And then just get all the way up to the microphone. See how I've got it? There you go. You may proceed when ready, Mr. Barker.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you state your name for the record and spell your last name, please?
Lucinda Hurst, Horst.
Thank you. Lucinda, where do you live?
Texas.
All right. What do you do out there?
I have 3 different jobs: babysitting, cleaning, and assembling windows in the Krause's window shop.
In the Krause's window shop?
Yes.
Is that the Sasha Krause family?
Yes.
Okay. And how long have you been out in Texas?
Since June of this year.
Before that, where did you live?
In Farmington, New Mexico.
All right. Were you out in the Lamp and Light community area?
Yes.
Now, we just heard from Lily a little bit about that situation, but tell us about where you were living there.
Okay, so I was living in the same house where Sasha lived. We call it the Lighthouse. It's within walking distance of Lamp and Light Publishers.
Okay. And what were you doing at that community? What was your job?
I was a secretary
For what?
for Lamp and Light.
Okay. For the publishing house there?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about the publishing house. What types of literature are they publishing there?
They focus on Bible studies, correspondence. So we send them Bible lessons through the mail, and they return the tests to us, and we grade them
Okay.
and send them certificates.
And is this solely for Mennonite members, or is it anybody who wants?
No, it's for everybody.
Okay. And so there's kind of this correspondence about Bible study, is that right?
Yes.
All right. Is that kind of the main occupation of the people that live there in the Mennonite community?
No, there are a lot of occupations.
All right. What other things are people doing there?
Lawn care, barn building. Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of things.
All right. We heard about the Gingrich home. What's that?
That's assisted living for elderly ladies.
Okay. And that's also in that community?
It is.
And so you mentioned you lived with Sasha. Did you also work with Sasha?
I did.
Okay. And what was her job there? Do you recall?
She helped in my department in what we call English correspondence, and she also worked in French correspondence and Spanish.
All right. So did she know Spanish and French then?
She knew Spanish and she was studying French.
How long had you lived in the Lamp and Light community area?
Total, I lived there 4.5 years.
Was it part of a mission or was it part of an assignment? How did you arrive there?
No, I was interested in working there. And so in 2016, I just called them up and asked them if they had an opening coming up. And they did, so I went.
And before that, were you in Texas?
Texas and Colombia, South America for a little bit.
All right. So we've been kind of dancing around this, but you're a member of the Mennonite church, right?
I am.
And you're wearing the traditional clothing, the head covering, is that right?
Yes.
We heard a little bit about this, but is that something as a woman that you would wear all the time, a head covering?
I do.
Is that something you saw Sasha wearing all the time?
Oh, yes.
And that's pretty foundational to your beliefs, is that right?
It is.
Okay. Listen, let me ask you a little bit about your relationship with Sasha. We heard some comments about this, but you lived together. Was there any difficulty in your relationship?
There was some toward the last, yes.
Okay. Difficulty is my word, but how would you describe it? What was going on?
Difficulty is a good way to put it. Stress.
Okay. And what was that related to?
Oh, it was all my fault.
Okay. In what way?
So we were coworkers, and I wasn't keeping up my end of the load. And Sasha, instead of coming to me and telling me, I wish you would carry your load better, I wish you would change what you're doing, she just sweetly started sort of taking over what I was not getting done. And I didn't really notice at first that was happening. And so it makes relationships difficult when you're not really, when I wasn't paying attention to how she was feeling about things. And so it was getting stressful for her.
Okay. Did you try to work that out with her, have a conversation about it?
Yeah, about a week or two before we lost her, during a lunch break, I asked her if we could talk a little bit because I thought something was bothering her. And so we had a good little talk. She was very honest with me and how she was feeling and how I was making her and one of the other coworkers feel. And it was a little step forward in our relationship.
Okay. I appreciate you telling us that. So that was about a week before January 18th then?
Probably within a week or two.
Right. Other than that kind of work stress, was your relationship positive with Sasha?
Well, since we lived together and worked together, it all tied into one big relationship thing. But yeah, we were friends.
All right. And were you aware that she was moving into a different space at that time?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And did that have anything to do with any work stress, or is that just something that the space opened up for her?
I guess I'm not really sure.
Okay, that's all right. So let me take you to a more specific date. This would be January 18th, 2020. Do you recall that day?
Yes.
Let's take this chronological, if we could. Do you recall what was going on that morning for you? What were you doing?
Yeah, I was spending time in the town of Farmington.
All right. And this was a Saturday, is that right?
Yes.
What's Saturday? What does that mean for you and for Mennonites in that community?
A day off work.
Okay. So you weren't working at the publishing house that day?
No.
A day to do some shopping and personal errands, is that right?
Right.
Maybe a day to get ready for the next day, which would have been Sunday.
Right.
So how long were you in town?
I don't remember. Several hours, probably.
Okay. Were you by yourself or with anyone else?
Yeah, I was by myself.
When do you recall getting back?
I'd say in the afternoon sometime. I don't think about it often. I don't remember.
All right. And I appreciate that it's been some time. And just, again, do the best you can to recall. And if you can, that's fine. So when you got back sometime that afternoon, do you recall seeing Sasha or Lily or anyone else in that house?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you recall seeing Sasha at all that day?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
When she and Lily were putting her new little bed together, I just went up to her trailer for a minute or two and just saw what they were doing and chatted a bit and went back to my house.
All right. And so that was the trailer just up the hill,
Right.
correct? Okay. Do you recall what time that was that afternoon?
No.
All right. Did you ever have any other contact with Sasha later that evening?
The main thing I remember is the last time she left the house.
Tell us about that.
I think I was just in the kitchen area and she was just headed out the door, and to the best of my memory, she just said, "I'm going to go look into the Sunday school project." And she went outside.
What did that mean, the Sunday school project?
I don't know. I think she was substituting for a Sunday school teacher the next day.
Do you recall, were you planning on traveling to a different church on Sunday, or do you recall what the plan was that next day for church?
For myself,
Right.
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you know if Sasha or Lily, were they attending a different church in another town?
I don't remember.
All right, that's okay. So you recall Sasha saying something about Sunday school, and do you know where she was going?
I guess I just assumed the church house
And why would you assume that?
because that's usually where we store that kind of thing.
Okay, there's some Sunday school materials in the church then?
Right.
What time of the afternoon or evening was that? Do you recall?
I don't know exactly. I'd say 7:30 or 8, maybe.
Okay. You weren't looking at a clock when this happened?
No.
All right, that's fair. Was that the last time you ever saw Sasha?
It was.
Okay. What's the next thing you remember happening that evening?
It gets fuzzy in my mind. I guess when I refer to my interviews to the transcripts, it helps me recall. But if you mean like what I can remember right now.
Yeah, just the best of your memory today. What do you remember happening later that evening?
So at some point, I called Naomi Morse for just a little bit. I chatted with her. That was outside, but I don't remember if that was before or after Sasha left the house.
All right. And Naomi Morse, that's Kurt Morris's wife?
Right,
Okay. One of the members in the community, is that fair?
right.
So that was maybe sometime that evening, but before you went to sleep, clearly.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Do you remember what time you went to bed?
That was at 11 o'clock.
11 p.m. So you're in the
Right.
house, and that's when you fell asleep, or that's when you were getting ready for bed?
Probably when I fell asleep. I think I went to bed.
And we heard from Lily that you lived there, obviously, and Lily, Sasha, and then there was another lady, Ruby, right?
Right.
And where was your room? How was that in location to Sasha's room? Where was that?
Right next to it.
Okay. So would you know if Sasha was in her room? Would you be able to hear her? Things like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember hearing if she was in her room when you were getting ready for bed?
No, I don't remember.
Do you know if she was in the house at all?
Like I say, I just don't remember.
All right. Do you recall leaving any light on for Sasha in case she was still out and about?
Yes, I did that.
When did you do that?
That was at 11, just before I went to bed.
All right. So in your mind, Sasha wasn't home yet at that point?
Yeah, I didn't really think she was.
Okay. Was that concerning at the time?
10:30 is when we're expected to be in our rooms and quiet. And so I should have gotten concerned because it was a little bit on the late side. But sometimes if one of us girls goes to a friend's house close by and get to talking, you know, it can get a little late. So I really wasn't worried. I just thought, well, as long as I leave this light on and her bedroom light's on, she can see to get through the living room back to her bedroom. And I just went to bed.
Right. What's the next thing that happened that night?
At 1:30, I just woke up and I don't remember any noise or anything. I just woke up and I noticed that the same lights were still on, and that made me feel kind of strange because obviously Sasha had never come back.
So this is 1:30 in the morning?
Right.
So this is just the next day. So this is early morning Sunday now, right?
Right.
So what did you do when you found out that it looked like Sasha hadn't returned?
I texted Lily. I said, "Where is Sasha? I'm scared."
And was that right when you woke up?
I think so. I think it was really quickly.
And then what did you two do together?
Just as quick as we could, we just headed down to the church house.
Right. Do you remember what the weather was like that day?
No.
Were you wearing jackets?
I think we probably were, but I don't remember.
All right. Is that road from the house you lived in to the church, is that a dark road?
I think it used to be darker. Now it's not anymore.
Now there's lights situated.
Yeah.
But back then, was it
I think
dark?
it was sort of dim, yeah.
In that time of night, surely it was night, so it was dark,
Yeah.
right? So you and Lily, did you just walk to the church at that point?
We did.
Did you call Sasha's phone at all?
I didn't. I think Lily did.
All right. Tell us what happened when you got down to the church.
So we walked in. It was all dark. There wasn't anything really to see. It just looked like a church house would look at night. It was just dark, and we went through the whole thing just looking for her, and nothing seemed unusual. We just didn't find her.
Did you see her car?
Yes.
And where was that parked?
Right close to the sidewalk, like right in the front. You could call it the front of the church house.
All right, and we've seen some photos, but there's a main level where the congregation would meet.
Right, it was that level.
That level, okay, and then there's a basement level, and there's another kind of parking area below.
Right,
So her car was on the top side.
in the upper parking lot. Mhm.
Did you notice any disturbance, anything unusual at her car or in the church?
I don't think so.
Right. Did you have to turn all the lights on to look around?
I think we must have turned a few on. I don't remember.
Okay. What did you do next?
We didn't find her, so we started walking up to the house again, and I got on the phone with Kurt and his wife to tell them. I don't remember what I told him, but something was wrong.
All right. Couldn't find Sasha, clearly.
Right.
Do you remember the police arriving sometime after that?
Yeah, not right away. At some point they did.
Okay. And why did you call Kurt? What was the reason for calling Kurt?
Oh, feels like he's the man that keeps our area safe. Like he watches out for people and keeps tabs on strange vehicles that might be driving through.
All right, so he was kind of the go-to person at that time.
Right.
All right. Was he kind of the point person talking to the police then when they arrived?
Yes, I think so. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show you some exhibits that have been admitted, okay? I'll have some questions for you.
Good. Do you want them up here? Oh, that'd be fine. Yeah, I'll get them. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so Lucinda, if you just look up at this screen here, I'm going to put up Exhibit 83. This has been admitted. Do you recognize what we're looking at here?
Yes, I do.
I'll zoom in a little bit. What are we looking at?
That's our little community that we call the compound.
All right. And you call it a compound, but does it have any walls around it or any fencing that prevent people from coming in?
No.
All right. This road right here, kind of the main dirt road that goes past the church, that links up with the highway. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And let me point out some other buildings. What's this over here?
Let me study this.
Sure.
Okay, that's Lamp and Light Publishers.
All right. And so what's this structure over here?
That's the Gingrich home.
And I think we talked about this, and it's labeled, but what is this building?
Yes, that's the church house.
And then this grayish building up here?
That's where Sasha and me lived.
Right. And then just above that, what is this trailer up here?
Oh, I had to study it a little bit. That's where Sasha was going to live, her little trailer.
Okay. Let me show you a couple other photos here. Let's go to 123. Do you recognize what's depicted here?
Well, I think that's Sasha's little car in the middle.
All right, and where is it parked?
I think it's parked to the left of where it was on that night, on the 18th.
What is this parking lot for?
That's the upper parking lot at church.
All right. Let me jump to 132. What is this?
That's the entryway
To what?
to the church, right inside of the front doors.
Right. And there's a way from this area to get down to the basement, is that right?
Right.
How would you get down to the basement?
There are two stairways right on the inside of the curtain that's open there. There's one that goes to the right, yes. And there's one on the left, yes.
Okay. Let's go to 133. What are we looking at here?
That's looking at the church house from the lower level.
All right, the basement area. And
Right,
you could enter from this door, is that right?
right,
And Sasha's car would have been parked up here then,
yes.
near the entrance? Okay.
And just let Mr. Barker finish his questions, okay? There's just a little bit of where you start to answer a question. It's okay, you're not doing anything wrong, but just to make a clear record, just go ahead and wait until the attorney finishes the question, okay?
All right.
Barker?
Thank you. I'm finished with the questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Lucinda.
Mr. Griffin?
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Bruce Griffin. I'm counsel for Mr. Gooch. I have some questions for you, all right?
All right.
Thanks. I want to ask you about your reference to strange cars. It is uncommon to see strange cars in your community. Is that fair?
It's become somewhat common, it seems like. But it's,
You go back to January the 18th, that time, the time of Sasha's disappearance. Would it have been uncommon then?
yeah, it was a little uncommon.
Was it more uncommon if it was in the night?
Oh, yes.
And you said that somebody looks out for things like that, and you made a reference to the gentleman that you contacted that night. Is that right?
Yes.
So that night, that day, did you see anything that stood out to you as being out of the ordinary?
No, I didn't.
Did you see any strange cars, quote unquote?
I don't remember that I did.
You were interviewed by law enforcement. You recall that?
Yes.
Basically, everybody was, right?
A lot of people were, yes.
And you didn't tell them at that time that you had any memory of a strange car, did you?
I don't know.
You don't remember today.
I don't.
But what we just determined would be that given that Sasha disappeared, if there had been a strange car, that probably would have been memorable to you at the time. Is that fair?
If I would have seen it, yes.
You don't remember seeing any cars, any strangers walking around?
No.
This gentleman, Mark Gooch, that's seated next to me, you had never seen him before January the 18th. Is that fair?
No.
Didn't know him?
No.
Never heard of him?
No, I don't think so.
Never heard of Sasha referring to him?
No.
You were asked generally nothing about when you went to the church at 1:30 with Lily. Nothing about the church stood out to you as unusual or a problem. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Nothing disturbed?
No.
And that was you both, and did you go through the entirety of the building or just the downstairs, just the upstairs, or do you recall?
I think we went through the whole thing.
When you looked at when you looked at Sasha's car, same question. Anything unusual or out of the ordinary with her car?
I don't notice details very much, so I really don't remember.
The short answer is no, nothing that you can recall.
No.
Nobody near her car?
What was that?
Nobody near her car? No person near her car?
No.
Did you know what specifically Sasha was going to do at the church?
No, I can't say I did.
No further. Thank you.
Mr. Barker?
Nothing further, thank you.
All right, do any of the jurors have a question for this witness before the witness is excused? All right, so if you do, just write your question down and just pass it all the way down towards the bailiff, so the bailiff gets it, please. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Folks that are listening in on the phone, please mute yourselves because I can still hear things in the background. So please mute yourselves if you're on the phone listening to the court proceedings. Okay. Was there another question? I'm sorry. Oh, there was. Okay. Thank you. Counsel, please join me sidebar.
Everything's being asked.
Now, I don't edit the questions. I read them exactly as they're written, okay? So if you don't understand the question, then let us know, all right? Does she recall what Sasha was wearing the last time she saw her when she was in the kitchen?
I don't.
What is the distance between Lucinda's room to Sasha's room?
Well, they're next to each other. They shared a wall. So from door to door, 12 feet maybe.
Now, there's a word missing at the end of this question, so if you can answer it, let us know. If you can't, let us know. What time did Lucinda call and speak to? So if you can answer it, go ahead. If you can't, just tell us. The attorneys get to do follow-up. And this is just a reminder to the jurors, please understand, I will not, we cannot edit your questions in any way. So just remember when you're writing out questions for potential witnesses, write it out as if you were asking the question of them completely and fully. Okay. I'll repeat it. Again, any question I ask, if you can answer it, then answer it. If you can't, because for whatever reason, including that you don't understand the question, just let us know that. What time did Lucinda call and speak to?
Probably they meant Kurt Morse.
So if that's the person they're asking, then go ahead. If you can.
If we left the house a few minutes after 1:30, it might be fair to say around 2 o'clock or a little bit before I called Kurt.
Did Lucinda and Lily attempt to walk up to Sasha's new home? If not, can Lucinda provide any additional info as to why?
I think we waited until Kurt Morse was helping us search because we're a little careful just where we walk, and her house is sort of back on the edge of our little area, and it didn't really feel safe to go up there, just us.
How well lit was the lower parking area?
I don't remember.
What did you do between Sasha heading to church and your bedtime?
It was just a calm evening there at the house. I think maybe some journaling and just a quiet Saturday evening at home.
All right, jurors, last opportunity. Any other questions for this witness before I turn the witness over to counsel for follow-up? Okay, apparently no other questions. Mr. Barker.
Thank you, Lucinda. Just on the question about going up to Sasha's new place, what would have been her new place? You mentioned something about a search later. So once Kurt was involved and other people in the community, was there a search of that entire area?
There was. Kurt and Lily and me searched. Yeah, after he came to join us, we searched through the church house again. And I think we went and looked at her little trailer up on the hill and Lamp and Light. And Kurt came with us into our house too to search, to glance around a little bit. Yes.
And in any of those locations you described, was there anything that stood out to you?
I don't think so.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Griffin.
No additional questions.
Okay. Mr. Barker, may this witness be excused?
Yes, thank you.
All right, you are excused, which means you can step down, and you're excused. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, it's just a couple minutes before 3, so we're just a little bit shy of an hour and a half. I think it's a good opportunity. Just go ahead and take our afternoon break before the next witness it comes into the courtroom. So we're going to take a 15-minute recess. Now, remember the admonition. Keep an open mind. Do not formulate any opinions about the case. Do not talk to anyone about the case. Do not let anyone talk to you about it, including each other. We stand in recess for 15 minutes.